Well, welcome back. We're going to do a stab today. So I'm waiting on a spinner, so I can't really do anything with the fuse here. So I've got to order a spinner. I don't have that. So the spinner comes in, put it on the motor, and that way I can actually blend all the rest of this to the spinner. So you got to have the spinner at this point when you want to start shaping the nose. So until the spinner gets here, we're going to go ahead and deviate a little bit and get off track and go do a stab. 6-pound sea grain wood in this stab, I think it's going to be perfect. And I'll show you here in a minute. There's a little fixture I made up to file these grooves at an angle. So without further ado, let's get down here and look at this stab. It's a little bit different. The reason being, I kept looking at this and I'm thinking, how do I get these notches in there? So it's showing these 1/8 inch ribs notching into this 1/4 inch leading edge and trailing edge, likewise on the elevator. And I guess you could cut these in there with a knife, but I came up with another way, and I think it's going to work. First thing I want to do is cut these center section pieces out. So I've got a nice piece of sea grain here. I think this is the stiffest piece. I'm going to put this right here on the trailing edge of the stab. And don't worry about cutting it to size. Cut it oversized and just let it hang out here. Okay, and then we're going to have a couple pieces for our stab here. We'll cut a couple blocks for back here. Let's see. That's a really sharp saw. It's almost too sharp where it grabs. Okay, so that's just the rough stock for the tip out there. Now the leading edge of the stab. Here's another nice sea grain. Let's go ahead and use that. cut these pieces here for what we're going to need up here. Like I said, these are all oversized. Don't worry about the exact dimensions of any of this stuff. Get another piece here. So pretty much have the outline kitted. Now these little blocks here that are going to go elevator and stab, I'm going to true one of these edges up here. That way I've got a nice a glue joint. Double check your fit. So the width of these little blocks isn't the critical thing. So I couldn't remember what sides I just trued out. One of the things you can do if you need to get away from this fence to get out there where the sandpaper is a little better, you can shim it out a little bit. You make sure it's at 90 though. We did the stab one way, where we put all the ribs here at the angle. We're going to speed this process up a little bit. Next step is I'm just going to glue this on to the center section, the leading edge of the elevator. Glue in the little tips there, and I'm going to mark these things as it's put together and then drop the ribs in. So we're going to throw down some fresh wax paper here. Now this is like the stab was. It's a little oversized, so that way I can go around and cut it to fit. Mark this wood where it goes. I like to make just a little mark right here to match this up, so when I get the glue on it, I know exactly where it needs to go to line up. So pull this out. I'm going to bead a glue on it, and then I just put the marks back where they were right there. And another thing I like to do, I'll use the X-Acto to actually mark instead of a pen. I'll look at the top view, and I'll take an X-Acto blade and I push it down and mark it right there, and then cut it. This isn't a pole saw. It's the wood's soft enough and the saw is sharp enough to where I don't need to actually push it. I can just pull it through there. So here's a quick look at the fixture I got set up on my bench. Basically, I just rolled the plans up to get them out of the way. Right here. The UHMW board that I've been using is strung out along the bench here. Now I've got this square bar, this aluminum tube, it's a sanding bar, clamped down to the bench. UHMW board is weighted down against the tube, which will be my fence. Out here, I overhung the bench. I overhung the fence, so when I slide this out to sand these notches, I've got some stability out here on the tube. So let's do a couple notches. The depth gauge, it's just it's not that critical. Just try to maintain the same depth. I just use masking tape. So this is going to be the fence for my file. This is just a standard Nicholson number 5 file. And I want to line this file up to where this little tick mark I made is in the center of the file. Now, the only thing you really have to pay attention to is hold the stab against the fence and the UHMW board. And then once you start the file, make sure the file stays against this edge of the UHMW board. And that's it. So flip it around. And I don't know if you can see with the tick mark in the center. And that's all there is to it. And you just go down the row here and file these notches or sand them or whatever. Now this file is set up to do a notch for 1/8 inch. That's the that seems to be what will fit in this notch. Now don't worry if the notch is just a little deeper or shallower. I mean, it's not super critical because we're going to cut these ribs to fit in the notches that we just filed. If you want to, stick your thumb up there to stabilize things, whatever you got to do. And just go right down the row here. So as you can see, it goes pretty fast and they're accurate. So I'll do the other half here. This is all the same. I'll get all these notches filed and then we'll glue some ribs in. Now when it comes time to glue these little ribs into these components, stab and elevator, I like to use this Tide Bond. It seems like it's a fast grab, but it's still open enough to where you can maneuver it around a little bit. Stick this little rib piece you cut into that notch, bottom it out, come over here, and that'll give you your cut line. And dip it in there. Now you can, if you want to, just take another piece of scrap and maybe put a little glue into this notch ahead of time. You might not even need to dip the rib. And insert that. You're going to have a lot of squeeze out. This rib's got just a hair oversized, so what's going to happen, you're going to have to sand these things flush. This whole stab and elevator is going to be plate sanded. Getting ahead of myself here. Of course, each one is cut individually. So this notch with this file, number 5 Nicholson file, it works out perfect for this 1/8 inch balsa. The stab I did yesterday had 1/16 inch balsa, and it was a little needle file. So just do some test scrap pieces and file the notch and see what fits in there. But I think between 16th and 8th covers a lot of it. The only other maybe rib size you might want to consider would be 3/32. So I'm not sure what file size would fit that. And you might have to go ahead and create your own little file out of sandpaper. I don't know. So try to wipe up the excess as you go. Another little bit of information with this notch system. You got to be careful when you use the notch system. What'll happen when you glue these pieces together, even if it's a little snug, basically a little snug and a little snug, as you go down the line, it'll bow the piece out. And it's not so critical in this application I've got here, but if you're doing a rib to the spar, and I've seen this method on many airplanes, I think the Noble is one of them, where the spar is like this and you put the rib on it. And if you have a tight fit, what'll happen is it'll spread the spar and you end up with a warp as you run those ribs down the line. So just be aware of that fact. So I've got one little rib right here. It's a little skewed off. I probably missed the little mark there. So we're going to take care of that. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to slice that down a little bit. And release the rib from the trailing edge. Another slice. Scoot it over. So I'll take a little bit of leftover wood here. Come in here. Put that little shim piece in there. It's not that critical, but it's something my eye picks up. So I'll jam that back down in that slot. And looks good. Now instead of using white glue to fix that mistake, we're just going to go here and just CA a little of this tab in. And I'll come in here and cut the rest of the tab out. Add a little bit more CA on the top. And that's all it takes to finish it. Now, if you had C clear through covering, if you looked really close, you'd see a little tick mark there where that tab is, but I'd rather look at the little piece right there than the crooked rib.